Hello, moms and momtrepreneurs. So I'm excited to bring you another segment of inspiring moms with Life Unboxed. So this segment, for I just invite moms and momtrepreneurs to come on the show and share their stories with us. So of how they different ways of how they homeschool, of how they built their business, their advice that they would give. And I really want you as a momtrepreneur to be inspired and encouraged by other moms. So, for this show, I sat down with Dachelle McVey from Hide the Chocolate and Literary Adventures, and we just talked about being inspired by what you do. And then we got into some practical things when it comes to, well, how do you balance it all with running a business and homeschooling your kids? But Dachelle is a homeschooling mom of three and creator of Hide the Chocolate and Literary Adventures for Kids. She has retired from many careers, and we get into some of those. But those careers are accounting, math teacher, baker, and cupcake shop owner. So, definitely a wide range of careers. Her latest career is homeschool mom, blogger, and curriculum creator. So we're going to get into the interview now, and I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as I did. Dachelle, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here. If you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Okay, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. So my name is Dachelle McVey, and I blog over at hidethechocolate.com where I talk about a relaxed Charlotte-based homeschool and just kind of share the things we do there, a lot of hands-on activities. I also own Literary Adventures for Kids, which is a full language arts curriculum for preschool through high school. We're a little bit different though. We're a little unique in that we base all of our language arts on specific novels. So it's a different concept, but we like to have fun and we think kids should enjoy language arts.
That is awesome. Okay. So I want to unpack just that statement real quick. But first, let's start with how many kids do you have?
Okay, I have 3, but they're not all homeschooling anymore. One of them
Okay.
has graduated, and he's graduating from college and living in another town. I'm so old. I feel so old. But my youngest 2, the oldest one of those, she's a senior, and then the other one's just starting high school this year. So, a lot of hormones in this home.
So have you homeschooled like your college age student? Did you homeschool him all the way through?
No, no, he
Okay.
didn't start till high school. My
Okay.
youngest, she's homeschooled the whole way through, but he was our, experiment, I guess.
Yes. The first one always is.
Yes. And I do not encourage people to pull their kids out of high school to homeschool unless they're totally on board with it, because it can be a little bit of a struggle.
Yes. So you homeschooled him through high school and now he's about to graduate college,
Yes, he is.
which is it might be a rabbit trail from what we're going to talk about, but I know a lot of parents like that's always their question. So how well did he do in college? Like how was that for him going from I mean, I guess he was in public school for a while.
Yes. So with him, I think that he would have done better had he homeschooled the whole time.
Okay.
When he was when he was in the traditional school system, he is he's in marketing, by the way. So this kind of plays into it. He's very good at talking people into things.
Yes.
Very good at it. And so I felt like he became a favorite of the teachers. And so he would get by with the minimum of what he needed to do to make an A. And that was, his goal was, I want to make this grade, this A or whatever, or I want to do this, whatever the thing he wanted to do. And so he would do the minimum of what he needed to do. And in college, that was a big eye opener for him that he couldn't convince all the teachers to give him
He
the grades he wanted.
he couldn't get by on his charm and good looks. I have one
Yeah.
like that. Yes.
Yeah, and he still does that. It's amazing the things he gets by with. I'm like, I would have never gotten by with that. No, no, no. But yeah, so I think he would have done better had he homeschooled the whole way through because he wouldn't have been able to do that to his mother. Um, but yeah, so I think the other two probably will have a bit of a head start. All that to say though, I'm finding, because I'm having, like I said, all the way from the spectrum of one just in high school homeschooling to one that's the whole thing, is I really have discovered that it's really about your kids, and they're
Right.
going to do as well as in college. As doesn't matter if they were in the traditional school system and the homeschool system. It just depends on their personality and what they want to do and what their ambition is, I guess. Because I used to be one of those people that was like, everybody's going to go to college. That's the whole plan. We're all going to college. And I actually was a senior advisor, and I was like, go to college. We're all going to college. And through the years, I've realized that's not always the best plan. And
Right.
it's definitely not the best use of your money if you're not going to be like, those specific careers that actually have to have a college degree.
Right.
So it's just not the best use of your money. But I will say, it doesn't matter if you homeschool or if you're traditional school. College, I don't think it's any harder for a homeschool kid. I worried about that a lot, but I really don't think it is. Seeing how many kids that I taught as a senior and went to college, and a lot of them go for that year and then drop out, because I
Mhm.
think they all feel like they need to go, but then they get
Right.
there and they're like, what am I supposed to do? You know, I could do whatever I was doing and not have to be here. So I just always like to tell parents, though, if you're homeschooling high school, it seems stressful and you freak out because you think, oh my gosh, how will I ever do this? And if they fail, I've destroyed my child's life. You haven't. It'll be fine. They'll be fine.
That's our job as parents, to always stress out about like ruining our
Yes.
kids. Like,
That's our whole job, is to freak out.
yes. Okay. So you've had a lot of career paths. And so now you're
This is true.
so I want to talk about all your different career paths, and then how you got to the point of being a momtrepreneur, running basically two businesses between your Hide the Chocolate and your literary adventures. So,
Yeah.
and homeschooling, much,
Mhm.
that little thing, just homeschooling on top of it all.
Right.
So let's start with your career paths. You just share with us all I thought it was hilarious when I was
Um,
reading your bio. So share with us.
my husband likes to joke that I've retired more than anybody he knows in his life. Uh, so I went to school to be, this is going to seem really weird because this is what my career is now, to be a CPA.
Okay.
And actually, I went to college to become a doctor or an engineer. Those were the two things I was told by my guidance counselors I needed to do, because they would make money and I would be successful. And by the way, I literally detest science, like with a passion. So for them to send me there to be a doctor or to be an engineer was quite hilarious. Um, but I got there and I didn't like it. And the things that I was good at were math and accounting. They come really easy to me,
Mhm.
but they're not things that inspire me. Now, I could sit down and do your taxes, or I could sit down and do the
Right.
business accounting, and it's going to come easy and I'm going to just do it quickly, but I don't feel excited about it. And I always wanted to go into language arts. I always go into literature, and everybody's like, nope, you can't make any money. You can't be successful. And I was still buying into that, what it takes to be successful. So I knew I had a lot of creativity in me that I wanted to get out. And so through the years, I've done so many crazy things, but probably the craziest thing is I did own a bakery at one point and was a cake artist for a while. And that was really fun until I started having people pay for their things. And then they got all grumpy about paying, and then they didn't appreciate, my lovely artistry for the hundreds of dollars. They were like, no, we're not going to pay that kind of money. And I'm like, but I spent 3 days doing this. So yeah, so I finally got back to my passion, which was language arts. And I didn't realize that until we started homeschooling and I started getting back into writing and how much I loved writing on the blog. And then realized that there's so much more to telling your story than the grammar and the 5-part essay and the hamburger paragraph and all that stuff. And that's really boring and a horrible way to teach children language arts. And so I started teaching my kids in a different way. And we did book clubs, and we would read, and we would go on rabbit trails, and we would do all sorts of hands-on activities. And then we would meet with our friends. And that was great when they started getting to middle school and really wanted that socialization. And then a friend of mine, a fellow blogger, looked at me one day. She goes, you could do this for a living. And I'm like, no, anybody can do this. Why would anybody pay me for that? She's like, no, not anybody can do this. You really need to look into see if you could do this for a living. And so that's how Literary Adventures for Kids was born, is to make language arts fun So when your kids start to lose that, and they will, that love of
Right.
reading, you give them exciting ways to want to read, and give them a fun way to do grammar where they don't even really realize they're doing grammar, that kind of thing. So I think that education should be inspiring. It should be tactile in a lot of ways.
Right.
And it should be fun for the kids, because as adults, when we want to learn something, we don't learn it because we're being have to. I mean, sometimes we do if it's for our career. But in general, if you want to go out and learn something new, like you want to learn a foreign language, that's because you're excited about it. You want to
Right.
do it. And that's the way education should be, in my opinion.
Okay. So, how would you say that all of your different careers have have they played into this literary adventures, or was
Yes.
it okay? So how how have they done that? Because I don't think we always appreciate being in those boring jobs, or uh
Yeah.
the state we don't always appreciate what we've learned when we're in those hard places.
This is just true. I mean, you really don't. And you need a bad job to realize you got a good job. I always laugh because my husband runs his own business, and he's like, he'll get these kids that have just out of school coming in to work for him. And they'll be like complaining about stuff. And I'm like, they don't even realize how good they've got it. And they'll leave and come back and say, we're so sorry. And I'm like, yeah, you have to have the bad jobs. You have to have, or the jobs that are uninspiring. It's
Right.
really sad. I was watching TikTok this morning, and on my walk, I only allow myself to watch TikTok while I'm exercising. That's my way to exercise. And this guy was saying, you don't have to have a job you love. Stop telling yourself that. You just need a job you can tolerate. And I thought, wow, that's terribly depressing. I understand that some people do that. They just need a job that they can tolerate so they can do the things they love. But I want a job that I love. I want a job that I'm excited about doing, and that inspires me and makes me feel like it's mine, and it's something
Right.
that, I can be proud of. And through all the different careers I've had, or jobs, or whatever you call them, is that was what I was getting to, is the things I loved, the things enjoyed. And there are things that you enjoy, but when you start making it a job, you don't, like the bakery. I enjoyed cake artistry. I enjoyed turning, cake into some tractor for a little boy,
Right.
or Darth Vader for my daughter, or whatever. I enjoyed that. But when it got to be people paying me and complaining about it, I was like, oh, that made me sad. And so that wasn't the career path. Then I realized that with language arts, I could change the way people think, or not necessarily the way they think, but the way they think about thinking.
Right.
Sounds a little crazy. But one of the things we do is we really make a big deal about kids learning to think critically and to think of their own. And you may get a book that you absolutely detest or hate, but did it make you think?
Yeah.
We just finished Crime and Punishment in January, and I sat around the table with all the high schoolers, and I was like, okay, what did we think of this book? And one out of all the kids liked it. Everybody else hated it. And I said, I'm going to be honest with you. I hated it too. It was awful. But it made me think. And they
Right.
were all like, yeah, it made them think, and it made them really question some things. Not that it changed my mind. I do not feel the way he does, the author does in that book, but it did make me think about how people can get that mindset, and how they do things that I would think are just unacceptable or immoral or whatever, or how
Mhm.
they moralize them. So I think that's a really important thing of going through all the different careers, and not buying into what people tell you, is find what you love, but find also something that makes you inspired. It gets you excited.
Okay. No, that's good advice. I like that. Um, so how long have you been doing literary adventures?
Oh, I
Because
was
you
going
have
to,
quite a few book club, you have quite a few things on the website. So I know
we
it takes a
do.
lot of time.
We have over now probably 100 course, no,
Okay.
see, probably about 150, between 120 and 150. I really don't know, honestly. I used to have those numbers. Yeah, so we've been doing it about 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
Now I've been doing the book clubs a lot longer than that, but actually publishing them. And I do have a friend of mine who writes a lot of the high school courses.
Okay.
Um, so there's two of us that are doing them, but we probably put out between 12 and 20 a year. And yeah, it's crazy. We're slowing down a little bit because getting a little tired, but we do everything with our kids. So it's all
Uh,
inspired by our kids. What are our children doing? And we work it out with them before we publish it. That
so they're
makes
your guinea pigs.
That's exactly right. They are.
Okay. So then how do you balance? Because well, let me go back to this because you do Charlotte Mason, and you said it's a very relaxed way of doing it. I've know of Charlotte Mason. I haven't tried it because it seems very parent intensive to
Mhm.
me. So how do you balance that, um, your homeschooling with producing all of these like 12 that's a lot to do per year.
Yeah,
Like,
and
it's really
I'm not
is.
saying I encourage that. First of all, with Charlotte Mason, it's a literature-based philosophy, okay? And
Right,
it can be very parent involved, especially in the younger years.
yeah,
I found in the high school years, it's not as parent involved because my kids, I'm teaching them to become independent learners. And
mhm.
so they do a lot on their own. So there's a lot of reading on their own. I'm not doing read alouds anymore. I'm really sad, but when they said they weren't going to sit on the couch and snuggle with me and read anymore, I cried a little bit, but I moved on. Um, I don't encourage my crazy work ethic, but I will say that one of the best ways I've found to work and homeschool and be mom and all that together is I have a great accountability group. And my
Okay,
friend Jen McKinnon over at um, Working Homeschool Mom Club on Facebook, she has a great accountability group. And they just, we can meet once a week and I'm able to, kind of say what I'm doing and they'll hold me to it. I can't do that on my own. If I don't make deadlines or tell somebody that I need this done by a certain time, I will get it. I will squirrel. I will get excited about the next new thing and I will leave that thing. So I need that accountability. So I think for everybody, you need to find your people, even if it's just one
okay,
person or two people, or in our group, there's six of us. And we just every Monday morning, we kind of throw things out there and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. And people brainstorm and help us. And I think that's the best way as a mom. You need other people, especially in the entrepreneur field with mothers.
right.
I don't think husbands always understand what we're doing. Um, and I don't say that in a bad way, like, oh, they're stupid or anything. What I'm saying is when I talk to other moms that in my fields that are doing things that they don't always get it because they're generally, and I'm not, I'm not saying that everybody is, but
Mm,
in general, the husbands are in a traditional job, system.
right.
And so they're working their 9 to 5 or they're whatever, they're going to the office or whatever. And so they don't understand what we're doing. Like, for example, my husband told me today, I have a meeting tomorrow and I can't do something. And he said, well, just rearrange it, reschedule it. That's what I do. And I just started, I was like, how do you even compare these two things? You walk out of the office and somebody can do the job for you. Or yes, you reschedule it. I can't do that. I am the face of Larry Ventures for Kids. When there's
Right.
an online book club, like on Thursday, we're doing a live book club. I have to be there. Somebody else can't show up for me. It's me. So I think that's why you need people who are doing the same thing or working the same way you are and realizing they're working in the middle of in between science and math, or when somebody's, outside playing in the backyard. This is when they're working. And it's not, oh, I've got this wonderful 9 to 5 period that nobody's really bothering me and I'm getting all this stuff done. Wouldn't that be awesome? If you weren't interrupted like 45 million times a day?
No, that's fine. Like, I hear the suggestions of just the, blocking your schedule, and I'm like, "Oh, that's a good one." Like 2 to 3 hours of uninterrupted time. I wish.
That doesn't happen in my house. I have to kick the kids out of the house for that to happen.
So how then do you, just to get really, really practical, how do you then structure your days and weeks to get everything done? I don't know which one's easier to to
Well,
explain, so we'll throw them both out there.
I use my Trello board. I love
Okay.
Trello boards. And I create every project I have has a card and it just has a big checklist of things. And that's the only way I can keep up with running multiple projects. But as far as like you said, like blocking out time, it's awesome when you can. So if you know that your kid's going to be in ballet from, 6 to 8,
Right.
then a lot of times I'm sitting there in the ballet parking lot on my laptop working. I
Mhm.
use that time wisely. I get up probably a couple hours before they do. I start working. And then, like I said, as my kids have aged and as you get teenagers, they can do a lot more independently. So now
Right.
I'm not teaching them a class. They're coming to me asking questions. I'm facilitating a class for
Right.
them. So I'm not really sitting there. Whereas before, when they were little, I'm reading the science and we're going over and we're doing the experiments together. Now they're doing these things on their own for the most part. So it's
Right.
a whole lot easier for me now. But yeah, there's a lot of like working late at night. There's a lot of working in the morning. There's a lot of working when they're at whatever activity that they're doing. And I think as moms, that's so hard for people to turn on and turn off. Like,
Yeah.
like that's what I say. When you're in a 9 to 5, you're working at that office, you're zoned into that job and you're getting it done. When I'm here at work and I'm working on a project and the kid walks in and they need help with a math problem, I now have to turn off what I'm doing at work and turn on, answer this math problem. And that's really jarring.
It
It takes
is.
a good amount of time to get right back into what you don't just pop back over there and start doing immediately what you were doing. You have to get back at what was I doing? There's 15 tabs up on my computer. Which tab was I working in? It's hard. So I always say, give yourself a break. I mean, this is hard being a mom and working at home and being an entrepreneur, but it's so worth it because we're showing our kids that we're doing something we're proud of. We're doing something we enjoy and love. Because I don't think you become an entrepreneur unless you're really just enjoying it. That's not something you do.
Mhm.
Um, and even for moms who are working from home just to, help make ends meet, you're showing your kids that you're doing what you need to do. You're making the sacrifices
Right.
for the family. And I think all of that is good. And I would never say stop working because you're showing them the wrong thing. No, I think that's a good thing to show them how you give them a work ethic and tell them this. If you want these things, then you have to, struggle sometimes and balance your life. And my friend, like I said, Jim McKenna, she's great. She always says there's no such thing as balance. We're just juggling balls all the time here. And I feel like that
So
way.
true.
Because if your house is clean, you probably didn't get your work done this week.
Right. There's so many things that I've had to just tell myself because I have 6 kids that run like from toddler to teenagers. So we're running the whole gambit of everything.
Oh.
And so many things that I've just had to tell myself, like, just let it go. It's
Yeah.
okay. Like if the living room doesn't get cleaned up for the 3rd time today, it's because a toddler, like she's a little whirlwind.
Yeah, and I will say too, one of the best pieces of advice somebody gave me probably a couple years ago was they said, a lot, like for example, you're teaching your kids homeschool. Like I hate science, so I've always kind of opted out on that one. Like if there's any way I could get somebody else to teach the
Yes.
science, I was for it. My daughter, the one that's going to be a senior, she's taken every one of her science classes at a local school, and she just goes over there for one class a day because I hate to teach science. And I feel the same way about when it comes to your business and when you're running a business, farm out those things that you don't want to do and don't feel guilty about it.
Mm.
Um, about 6 months ago, I actually hired a housekeeper and I felt so horribly bad about it for the first little while. I'm like, I'm not doing my job as a mom and a wife and keeping the house clean. And my husband just laughed at it. He was like, but you're paying for the housekeeper with the money you're making and you hate to clean toilets anyway. And I'm like, well, this is true. So win-win. you know, they get a job and I don't have to do it. And that's don't feel guilty for getting some help sometimes and doing having people help you do the things that you can't or don't want to do.
I totally agree with that. Yeah. So, what advice would you give a mom who's maybe still stuck in a job that's uninspiring and kind of wants to start moving into the entrepreneur side of things so that she can be home with her kids and homeschool her kids, but she needs to make that transition. So what advice would you give?
Well, the first bit of advice, get everybody on board with your plan. I have a tendency to do things and then see how it works out. And that's probably a bad way to do that. But you see, you need everybody, and I'm talking about even the kids. Like if you're going to start homeschooling, you need to make sure the kids are on board with
Yeah.
homeschooling if you're pulling them out of traditional school. If you're going to say, I'm going to quit my job that everybody's used to, not necessarily because they're used to your money, but used to this is your schedule and this is
Right.
how we do things, because kids are really big into routines. And, if they're used to getting up 6 a.m. and getting into school and now we're going to homeschool, that's a different thing. If they're used to, we're doing school at this time because mom's at work and mom's coming home or whatever at this time, you need to get them on board, not to mention your partner. You always need to get them on board, obviously, because you're going to be changing up the dynamics, but get everybody to where they understand and help them to understand why you're making that change. So for my husband, he would say things in the beginning like, well, you don't need to work. And I literally detest that. I mean, I detest that comment. Somebody said it to me the other day after I've had this business for a long time. They said, well, you don't need to work. I'm like, dadgummit, I don't need to work. I want to. This is what I love doing. I enjoy it. I wouldn't be doing this if I hated it. Yeah, I don't quote unquote have to work. My husband has a good job that pays the bills. So I don't have to choose this. I want to choose it. And I'm excited about it because everybody has to have something in their lives that's fulfilling. And it can be your fulfilling thing, can be a mom. That can be your thing is you just want to be a mom and stay home with the babies and take care of the babies. Like I said, mine are growing old. I don't have a lot of mom duties anymore because
Right.
when you have teenagers, you're on mom duty when they let you. The rest of the time, they're hiding in their room and they're ignoring you and pretending like you don't exist, you know. So my mom duties aren't that fulfilling these days. And like I said, I do hate doing laundry and toilets and dishes and vacuuming.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so make sure they understand that this is something you're doing because you have some kind of creativity that you want to express. And then I say do it. I have a friend. I was going to say something else, but a friend who is always saying, I'm going to do this. I'm going to start this business or I'm going to do that. And she just never will. And I always look at her and say, okay, well, you've been saying this for like 15 years. When are you going to do this? And she's so uninspired in her job that 15 years ago, if she'd made this decision, her business would be doing well now. But she
Right.
keeps waiting and waiting. And, I think that sometimes we put our dreams on hold for silly reasons. Maybe it's because it's not really our dream. Maybe we just think it is. But in other ways, I think we put them on hold because we think we're supposed to fulfill some type of role.
Mm.
And I think at some point you have to go, what is the role I want to fulfill, as opposed to what do I feel like I'm supposed to fulfill? So just do it.
Just do it.
Do it.
That's usually my advice too. Just do it. Just take the step. Start small if you have
Worst
to.
is gonna happen. That's what I say. What's the worst gonna happen? I mean, if you got a really high paying job and you quit it to do this, okay, that might be bad. So, I'm not saying quit your 600K job a year to start a blog, but
Start
I'm
small.
yeah, but you can do a lot of things that if your dream, none of us really started our dream jobs by quitting another job and starting. We a lot of
Right.
times started it on the side and it grew. Like
It's
Literary
true.
Adventures for Kids was not supposed to be a full language arts curriculum for pre-K for high school. It was supposed to be me having a little fun with a few book clubs a year. And it just got growing and growing. And so now it is a full-time job. And I think that's way, most people are going to start it. But I always do the math and think, okay, what's the worst case scenario if
Mm.
this fails? If am I going to put 10 grand into it and I'm going to lose it? Can I afford to lose that?
Right.
And, make that decision.
Well, I think it is so awesome that you turned your love of literature into business. I think that moms everywhere should be inspired by that and that you can do it. So, the final two questions. The first one is, what is your favorite part of being a mom?
Gosh, it's so different now than when I would have told you this 10 years ago.
Yes.
But right now, it's just seeing them become adults and seeing them become who they always were supposed to be. It's really the most exciting thing about having teenagers and young adults in your life is that when they're kids, you're molding them, and they're shaping them, and you think you're doing all these things to make them these people, and then they come out and some of their best qualities are some that you absolutely detest because they're the ones that they've
Yes.
argued with you, about. And then
Right.
you look at them and the qualities that you just detest in them are the ones that are your qualities because you're arguing with them. Um, but it's really cool to see them become their own people. That's what probably my favorite thing about being a mom right now. I'm sure that will change in 10 years. You could ask me about being a grandma,
Right.
but
I was gonna say grandma then.
right now it's just seeing them become their own people.
Right. And knowing like, wow, I did a good job. Like I
or
didn't mess
at
them
least I
up.
didn't destroy it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. All right, so let us know, where can everyone find you?
Okay, so you can find me at hithechocolate.com or literaryadventuresforkids.com. That's a long, I know I shouldn't have named it that long. Um, I am on Facebook at Hide the Chocolate and Literary Adventures for Kids. I'm on Instagram at Hide the Chocolate Blog because somebody already stole that one, and Literary Adventures for Kids. I'm on TikTok at Hide the Chocolate and Pinterest at Hide the Chocolate. And I'm trying to think. Don't find me on Twitter. I have something on there, but I'm never there.
Neither am I. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us and inspiring moms to be inspired by what they do.
Thank you. I appreciate it.